tend to be very angry, bitter people.
They don't like America.
They hate us.
They're after you. They're after our country.
They are seized by a spirit of destruction.
They're not attractive. They're not sexy. Conservatives are sexy.
It's not the vibe. Stop!
Oh hi, it's me, your funny uncle who's better in small doses. Last December, thousands of conservative activists descended on Phoenix, Arizona for something called AmericaFest, a conference put together by the right-wing activist group Turning Point USA. The conference was billed as an event aimed at taking America back, and featured some of the biggest names in conservative politics and media. Now I know I should probably ignore shit like this because life is hard enough as it is and I'm gonna give myself an ulcer, but I was curious. For the past few years, Republican politics have been defined by the presidency of Donald Trump. Whatever Trump wanted was what the party wanted, and the GOP's central function was to protect their leader.
This is Donald Trump's party, and I'm a Donald Trump Republican.
And that's fine when you're the incumbent, but the problem with cults of personality in politics is that eventually the cult leader loses. And if you don't have a clear ideology that unites you, some policy agenda that you're trying to get done, you're gonna end up with a bunch of people wondering why they're still wearing these stupid red hats.
Well, shit. What are y'all doing?
So that's what I wanted to figure out. What does the Republican Party stand for after Trump? And to answer that question, I watched every single minute of this godforsaken conference. Part 1 of this video will be a breakdown of what happened there, and part 2, if any of us get there, will be my attempt to make sense of what happened. Fair warning, transphobia, pedophilia, extreme cringe. I mean, it's called AmericaFest. What do you expect? I'm gonna cast a quick protection spell before we get started.
Okay, let's go.
Your computer is not glitching. This is the actual footage that was broadcast from the conference. They wanted to start with this moving rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, but the feed went haywire, so instead we get this unsettling, audio peaking nightmare. I think it's called hyperpop. Then, straight to the pyrotechnics. If you're wondering how a grassroots organization gets a budget for an event like this is not a grassroots organization. Turning Point gets millions of dollars every year from right-wing megadonors like the Koch brothers, Foster Friess, and Bernard Marcus. AmericaFest in particular was sponsored by the Koch brothers Heritage Foundation and the Murdoch family's Fox Nation. So this entire conference is just billionaires paying millionaires to pretend to hate the ruling class. Speaking of which, please welcome your MC for this conference, Turning Point co-founder Charlie Kirk.
For far too long, we have allowed self-interested politicians to take advantage of us. No more. We're taking back our country, everybody. We're not going to let it happen anymore.
Kirk starts off the conference by going after a bunch of the GOP's favorite punching bags, bashing critical race theory,
Wokeism, diversity, equity, inclusion.
bashing trans people,
Only women can become pregnant. That's it. I said it. I know.
bashing Fauci.
Fauci should be in prison for how he handled the Chinese coronavirus.
Actually, the bulk of Kirk's speech is about the pandemic. He peddles a bunch of dangerous and ineffective treatments.
Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, vitamin C, azithromycin, aspirin.
Club, not a club.
Intensive care unit.
We are waking up against the medical industrial complex.
Kirk makes clear, though, that the purpose of this conference isn't really to talk about policy. It's about something deeper than that.
We'll talk about high taxes and low taxes. We'll talk about free markets. We love all of those things. But we know there's a deeper game being played, everybody, than tax policy right now in our country. The game that's being played is very simple. Are you thankful that you're an American, or are you angry that you're an American? And are you willing to do something about it?
Kirk finishes his speech by taking a second to remember Bill Montgomery, the other co-founder of Turning Point USA, who died a few months before the event.
This all started when I was 18 years old, and I want to just say thanks to Bill Montgomery, who's passed away, for his amazing mentorship and help.
You'll notice that Kirk doesn't mention how Montgomery died, though. Do you want to guess why?
Well, if
it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Next up, the host of America's White Power Hour, Tucker Carlson. I don't like when it walks. So Tucker's speech starts off pretty normally, I guess. He makes fun of Biden for being old, complains about mask and vaccine mandates, and defends the people who rioted at the Capitol on January 6th.
We just arrested people for walking down the hall in the Capitol building.
But then Tucker does the same thing that Kirk did, arguing that the difference between the left and the right in this country isn't really about policy.
People are standing up and saying, let's get rid of the cops, because I know that's going to make things better. So why would you say that? Well, there's only one reason to say that, and that's to destroy things. For its own sake. There is a spiritual dimension to this. They are seized by something, by a spirit of destruction.
This argument goes on for a while. Tucker says Democrats are too scared to be good leaders.
Oh, the whimpering dog's going to lead the pack. That's a good idea. No! Whimpering dog gets to the back.
And argues that the real reason the left wants to control you is because they secretly hate themselves.
Maybe you're in this business in the first place because there's a huge hollow space inside that you can't fill.
A huge hollow space that can't be filled, huh? Well, he's half right. Dad, I'm sorry.
There are only two kinds of people. You're either creating something beautiful or you're tearing it down. That's it.
Now, a part of me wants to take the bait here and make a 3-hour response video explaining how actually it's the left that wants to build things. It's literally called Build Back Better, dude. Debate me on this. Bait me on this. Bait me, bro. Bait me on this. Oh shit, thanks for the subs, fam. Shout out to all my obnoxious teenage boys out there. This is what thoughtfulness looks like, baby. This is all for you. But I don't have it in me. Tucker Carlson does not believe a word of this shit. He is a trust fund elitist who admits he only says this stuff because he knows that gullible conservatives will eat it up. I've made an entire video about Tucker's shtick that I invite you to rage watch once this is over. But what's interesting about his speech is how explicitly non-political it is. Kirk and Tucker start AmericaFest by arguing that being a conservative is not really about your ideology or policy preferences, it's about your vibe.
I definitely don't want to be around crazy people who want to wreck stuff. I want to be around happy people who want to build stuff.
Are you a creator or a destroyer? Do you love America or do you hate it? Are you a tough dog or a scared dog?
They tend to be very angry, bitter people. They're always trying to destroy, and they've never built anything in their life.
It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
That's so true.
The whole thing sounds less like a political action conference and more like a lifestyle brand or a new age church. And that's actually how day one ends, with Tucker encouraging people to flee from liberal cities, move to the countryside, and await the dawning of a new, more righteous era.
The whole interior of the country has been abandoned. It's unpopulated. You can live there if you want, and then you can wait for the dawn, which is coming. Thank you.
Turning Point Action welcomes Donald Trump Jr.
That woke. Oh my goodness.
I'm crying.
Day two starts with Don Jr. describing a country that has been completely taken over by the radical left.
They got pop culture, they got sports and academia, the grooming grounds for our children. They've taken over the upper echelons of law enforcement. They've taken over the upper echelons of our military.
He hits all the classics. Critical race theory, a transgender swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania, Jussie Smollett for some reason, still. It's the kind of shit you'd expect to hear from Fox and Friends, which is almost certainly where he got it from.
Their ideas suck. Their ideas are garbage.
Wow. That was so powerful.
Then things get a little darker. Don Jr. brings up Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy who shot and killed 2 people during a racial justice protest in Kenosha, and celebrates the fact that one of those victims had been previously convicted of sexually abusing a child.
Doesn't mean they maybe deserve to get shot. But if someone's gonna get shot, it might as well be a pedophile.
He then goes on to defend the January 6th riot, specifically condemning the Republicans who spoke out against the insurrection.
We don't need more Mitt Romneys, but if you fight, we're all gonna go to war for you.
Just really dark shit all around. And it only gets darker from here. Please welcome Sarah Palin! Actually, I'm already tired of this intro music, and thanks to my patrons, I don't have to monetize my videos on YouTube, which means I can start adding in my own intro music.
Smack my ass like the drum.
It comes down to, darkness and lightness and good versus evil.
This interview is about as heavy on substance as you'd expect. Critical race theory, abortion. The cameraman takes a cigarette break in the middle of the interview, resulting in this long, uncomfortable zoom in on Kirk's face.
The prophecy is true.
Hey, say something deranged about vaccines.
I want you to raise your hand if you or someone you know had a serious adverse event to this vaccine. Raise your hand. Huh. What's going on here?
That's not how vaccine research works. Facts don't care about what you saw on Facebook. Eventually, Kirk just stops talking to Palin entirely and goes on another unprompted rant against trans people.
It is not freedom to have a 9-year-old chemically castrate the way God made them. Teachers are now recruiting students into transgender lifestyles.
I don't want to give this vile shit any more airtime, so let's fast forward to something a bit more reasonable. Psych! Did you actually think this was gonna get more reasonable? We're living in a failed state, baby. It only gets worse from here.
The reason why you've seen me attacked this way is because they hate us.
She's got a point.
Green has gotten pretty good at not repeating her QAnon anti-Semitic beliefs when the cameras are rolling, so she pretty much sticks to the script here. Build the wall, end abortion, creepy, homophobic, and transphobic stuff.
Nancy Pelosi completely erased gender this year. I'm kind of one of those gender people. I'm all about the male and the female.
Ew, Michelle.
Most of her speech, though, is spent defending the January 6 rioters, peddling a conspiracy theory that the insurrection was actually a false flag operation designed to help start a communist revolution.
Democrats call it an insurrection, but I think we can start calling it a fedsurrection. What we're going through, ladies and gentlemen, is a communist revolution. Because ever since January 6th, we've seen Americans hunted down, their houses raided by the FBI.
Alexa, what is communism?
Communism is when the government does something I don't like. Communism is whatever I want it to be. Words have no meaning. Hail Hydra.
American dream.
No, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop! Then comes this guy, who gets on stage and actually starts making what sounds like a serious policy argument about inflation and government spending.
Prices keep rising thanks to Fed Chairman Jerome Powell and all of the rest of the Biden inflation brigade.
Obviously, I think his argument is wrong. My whole next video is about this topic, but it is an argument, and I was getting excited to mark this down as a serious policy idea being discussed at AmericaFest. And then...
The good news is you can protect yourself and your family with wealth, with gold and silver. My new book, Real Money for Free People.
God damn it. The whole thing was an ad to get you to buy gold and silver. He's the live version of all those goddamn Fox News commercials trying to scare boomers into giving away their money.
We'll be raffling off a tube of 20 Silver Eagles. You don't need to be present to win. Just fill out a slip at the table.
Doesn't count. Market zero.
You think I'm fucking around here? Market zero!
Next up, oh boy. Next is a panel discussion titled How Cultural Marxists Hijacked America, featuring 3 white guys who've never read a book in their goddamn lives.
Most important thing you really need to know about critical race theory is it's calling everything that you want to control racist until you control it.
Nope. That's bait. I've already made an entire video about critical race theory. Not doing this again.
Because they want to actually create a situation where people who are considered authentically black get all the power. You let this happen, they take over everything, it's the end of the country.
I said I'm not taking the bait! Honestly, I was tempted to just skip this panel entirely. But about halfway through, this guy starts getting a little high off the feedback he's getting from the audience and decides to kick this shit into high gear.
Critical race theory is a funnel into queer theory. And I know I've shared a stage with you many times and said, well, queer theory is a topic for another day, Charlie. That's today.
Uh-oh.
This is what Mao Zedong did. He separated the culture into 5 categories that were considered red for communist and 5 categories that were considered black for being bad.
Where's this going?
So if you're white, you have a black racial cultural identity. But if you become gender fluid, you have a red one now. And what you have is critical race theory creating both a distraction from it and a funnel for the white, straight male kids to want to start identifying this way.
Holy shit. For the record, this is not some random dude who walked on stage. This is James Lindsay, a man who has appeared in every right-wing media outlet you can think of. A man who is constantly referred to as an expert on wokeism and cultural Marxism, arguing that the point of critical race theory is to make straight white guys so ashamed of being white that they choose to become queer so they can be minorities too. They got us, boys. The jig is up.
This is sexual and whatever else grooming. The communists have a handshake agreement with the pedophiles. I'm not even going to exaggerate.
Okay, enough. Speaking of enabling pedophiles, please welcome Congressman Jim Jordan, a man who's been credibly accused of turning a blind eye to the molestation of his own students while working as a wrestling coach at Ohio State.
Here's the fundamental issue. The left, which now controls the Democrat Party, they don't like America.
Critical race theory bad, Fauci bad, Trump good. Who's next? It's Byron Donalds, a Florida congressman who voted against the certification of the 2020 election, but who claims he's here to talk about the real issues.
I know we could talk about immigration, we could talk about spending, we could talk about the debt, we could talk about inflation, we could talk about Afghanistan, but I ran for Congress for one reason, and that's because we got a country to save. The first thing is, if you're going to save America, what you actually want to have is a country where you're allowed freely to think, to speak, to post. You can share memes.
You are a sitting member of Congress. What the fuck? Sorry about that, guys. I had to take a quick shit post, but I feel much better now. So we got memes, good, I guess. Any other big policy ideas for us, Byron?
Let's talk about economics. I talked a little bit about money. Taxes, we should keep them low. You see, they like to talk so much about how the people at the top take so much money. Last time I checked, when I was a kid, and we begged our moms for $130 to go buy a pair of Air Jordans. Michael Jordan didn't make me buy his sneakers.
You know what? That counts. He technically made an argument about economics. We're taking it. He also goes on to say that we should be doing more domestic oil drilling, which makes sense given that he, like AmericaFest, is heavily funded by donations from the oil and gas industry. The cameraman reads a little too much queer theory and decides to give us a quick zoom in on the congressman's nuts, and then it's on to the next thing.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains.
This is an ad for a company that sends you a box of raw meat every month.
God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Girl, find the note.
If you don't know what Good Ranchers is, that means you have not been listening to Charlie Kirk's podcast enough.
Actually, it turns out that a huge chunk of this conference is just commercials for companies that run ads on Charlie Kirk's podcast. This is an ad for Patriot Mobile, a pro-America cell phone service that's been promoted by a bunch of right-wing podcasters lately.
Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies who fight for our rights and beliefs.
Just for fun, I looked up some of the reviews for Patriot Mobile, and oh boy, hot mess scam. The grift is strong with this one. Agents are not truthful. A part of me does feel bad for the people who fell for this scam, but this is what you get for putting your faith in the free market. At least you get to keep your novelty fuck Biden t-shirt. Next up is Fox News host Jeanine Pirro, who opens her speech with this absolute banger of a thesis statement.
The country has changed. There is a culture war going on. And you need to understand that this country is the greatest country on earth.
Why are you all clapping? Those words don't mean anything. In fairness though, Pirro's speech is weirdly one of the most policy-focused of the entire conference. She focuses on law and order, blaming the recent rise in homicides on the defund the police movement and fear-mongering about the amount of fentanyl crossing the border.
2 grams will kill you. It'll kill all of us.
To be clear, both of these arguments are wrong on the merits. The police have not been defunded, and border fentanyl seizures are actually up under Biden. But she is still technically making arguments about government policy, so it counts. Policy wonk, Jeanine Pirro, everyone. Next up is a speech from the founder of Jimmy John's Sandwich Shop. Yep, Jimmy John's is run by a right-wing weirdo. I'm sorry to be the one to break the news to you. Smells are only free because they exploit their workers. And closing out day 2, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Another Republican credibly linked to allegations of sex with minors. Jesus Christ.
Bring on the midterms, baby!
Gates' speech is all fire and brimstone. Critical race theory, Hunter Biden's laptop, cringy immigrant bashing.
I think every illegal immigrant that we deport should get one original Hunter Biden painting.
Man, boo. Tomato, tomato, tomato.
But most of his speech is spent describing what Republicans should do to Democrats if they retake power in the upcoming midterms.
Every committee gets an investigation to run. Every Biden agency gets a colonoscopy, and Hunter Biden finally gets a damn subpoena.
Gates never really explains what these investigations should be about or what they would try to accomplish, but to the audience, it doesn't seem to matter.
The radical left today deserves confrontation and contempt and condemnation, not civility masquerading around like surrender.
Okay, so actually, Gates says something else in this speech, something that I think is really remarkable, but I want to save it for the second half of this video. Don't freak out. I'm just building an argument here. Daddy's got you. For now, just know that day 2 ends sounding a lot like day 1, with almost biblical language about the arrival of a new dawn.
This last year has been tough on many, and I'm no exception. I can assure you that. When it's darkest, it's just before when those great rays of sunlight are about to shine through. America's oldest president might come just before America's youngest. Will Charlie Kirk be old enough to run for president in 2024?
Sun is shining, melting the clouds away. Got me some blue sky action. I'm breathing today. I know I'm burning. This is my final day. I'm gonna go out smiling. A king for a day. A king for a day.
James O'Keefe, a right-wing con artist famous for publishing fake exposés about the radical left, lip-syncing in a 20-minute musical about his life, narrated by him.
What on earth they got you on?
I have no idea. I haven't been charged with anything yet.
You haven't been charged? I ain't never seen nothing like this before.
Felon, terrorist, white supremacist, racist, pervert. Was this really worth it?
They hired dancers for this. They rented out rehearsal space.
What are we watching?
That's it. There's no speech, it's literally just the musical.
That's it. Why are we at Drag Brunch?
Speaking of right-wing things that are kinda gay, please welcome Benny Johnson. A guy who got fired from BuzzFeed for plagiarizing, demoted at IJR for plagiarizing, and now works as a full-time Tucker Carlson impersonator.
You deserve to know these facts.
Benny Johnson, everybody.
This scares the libs so much. Libs are sitting alone in an apartment right now with some hairless cat eating Uber Eats.
Wait, is this fucking play about us?
So I just got to that part of the Benny Johnson speech, and I am alone in my apartment, and that is Uber Eats next to me. And I do have a cat, but he's not hairless, so fuck you, Benny Johnson!
Libs don't want to procreate. They're not attractive. They're not sexy. Conservatives are sexy. We are the sexy, happy parents of America, and we're creating the next generation of freedom.
Okay, well, if we're being petty, I know Benny Johnson is in his hetero era right now, but he has publicly tweeted about getting served targeted ads for gay sex cruises before. So let's just say there's a good chance he's plagiarizing his sexual orientation too. Johnson's speech is the definition of head empty, just vibes, arguing that the problem with leftists is that they're not cool enough to be the heroes of a movie.
Your hero in your favorite story, it would suck if the hero in that story was a modern day, whiny, sad, miserable, entitled, spoiled, pretentious, conformist leftist.
This is seriously his whole argument. He shows clips from Star Wars, Home Alone, and The Lion King. asking the audience to imagine how bad the movie would be if the main character were a lib.
Do we like lib Simba or do we want red-pilled Simba?
What is going on with you? What are you talking about?
He also includes a clip from the movie Mean Girls, because, you know, the dolls are the dolls.
It's pretty amazing how Regina George actually is literally the fascist. Whereas, you have Katie here, she charts her own path against the, what are they called? The Mean Girl Squad?
You know they're called the Plastic Sis. Probably had it on Blu-ray. Then he invites his wife on stage for a very heterosexual kiss for the audience.
This is definitely fruity.
And he closes his speech by encouraging people to grab their guns and defend their country, like Kevin in Home Alone.
We're going to save America. We're going to complete our hero arc. I know you all have guns, probably bigger than BB guns. And we're going to defeat the destructive elements that want to wreck our house.
Okay, sis. See you on Grindr. Up next, an entire panel about how the election was stolen, featuring 2 congressmen who helped incite the January 6th riot. I'm not stopping for this. We have to move on. Now, please welcome every service worker's worst nightmare.
She pisses when she farts. Sometimes she shorts. Booty rocking cowgirl.
They aren't after me, folks. They're after you. They're after our children. They're after our country.
Critical race theory, defending the rioters, making fun of Hunter Biden. Actually, most of her speech is just straight up name calling. It's kind of wild.
I'm tired of having brother marrying, violence inciting, Parmesan smoking, terrorist supporting, child sniffing, commies wreck this country.
And then, without missing a beat,
Father God, I thank you. I thank you for the blood of Jesus.
not thank you, Jesus, after all of that.
As we have the armor of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, the breastplate of righteousness,
The boots of Elvenkind, and the bag of holding. Christian Dominionism is just Dungeons and Dragons if the final boss were your own intelligence score. That's right. Some jokes are just for me.
I was bought and paid for by the blood of Jesus.
Actually, she was bought and paid for by her husband's oil and natural gas company. A fact that she tried to hide from the public despite introducing bills that would personally enrich her family. At this point in the conference, I was starting to zone out a bit, and I figured I'd basically gotten the gist of what AmericaFest had to offer. And then... Kyle Rittenhouse, just a month after he was acquitted for his killings in Kenosha, walks on stage to a standing ovation from his supporters. Just a few weeks earlier, Rittenhouse had been sobbing about how traumatized he was by his decision to gun down civilians on the street. Now, he was receiving a hero's welcome, promising to take revenge on the media outlets that had covered his trial.
I don't know, but some accountability's coming. I'd be on the lookout. Accountability may be coming.
I don't have anything to say about this that hasn't already been said by smarter people. The whole thing breaks my brain. Let's just power through the rest of this. Next to the stage is Jack Posobiec, a neo-Nazi collaborator who tweets Nazi propaganda and hangs out with neo-Nazi organizers.
One nation, under God.
And closing out day 3, it's Ted Cruz.
Don't want no short dick man. Don't want no short dick man.
This isn't me, this is the actual song from the conference. Like many of the speakers at AmericaFest, Cruz starts off sounding like he's actually going to talk about real policy issues.
We're seeing an assault on our constitutional liberties, an assault on free speech, an assault on the Second Amendment.
But that is literally as specific as he gets. There's no mention of a bill being debated or a court case being decided. Congress is not seriously considering legislation on any of these topics. And we have a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, so I am genuinely curious as to what assault he is talking about here. But that is the last we hear of it, before Cruz falls back on the same shtick as everyone else.
There is a difference between boys and girls.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
The left is so unhappy. They're shrill. They're angry. They're pissed. How many radical leftists does it take to screw in a light bulb? That's not funny!
You're the one bombing.
Believe it or not, Day 3 ends even more depressingly than the others. Not with religious language about the arrival of a new dawn, but with Ted Cruz, one of the most powerful members of the US Senate, begging the audience to subscribe to his podcast.
Find your kids or your grandkids and get them to subscribe you to the podcast.
Home stretch, everybody. It's not your computer, the feed glitches out again. Every time they try to perform the national anthem, it's just like, please do not tag me in this shit.
And the home is Charlie, baby.
The last day of America Fest starts with, you guessed it, another panel on wokeism featuring a bunch of straight white guys. This one's called Culture War in the American War Machine. And for a brief second, I hoped that this might be like a libertarian critique of the military-industrial complex or something, but nah. The war machine is good. We just don't want it to be trans.
When you're in combat, you have to accept the situation for what it is, man. When you ask me to say that a man can be a woman,
take a willow pill, do my thick bitch looks, have you feeling ill?
what else can you convince me to say? You can convince me to say whatever you wanted me to say.
Shrill. They're angry. They're pissed.
Which brings us, mercifully, to the final speech of the conference, during which Charlie Kirk returns to the stage to give a dire warning about the state of America's youth.
This is the most depressed, most suicidal, most drug addicted, most childless generation in American history. And we should take a pause and ask ourselves the question, what is causing this and what are we doing to stop it?
It's a genuinely good question, and an excellent opportunity to talk about some of the issues that are actually causing hopelessness among the next generation. To talk about any of the big systemic problems that you might expect a political party to have some policy ideas for addressing. So what solutions does Charlie Kirk have for the next generation of desperate, anxious, genuinely screwed Americans?
Here is the amazing message of positivity and optimism I have for you. Through Jesus Christ, through the teaching of the scriptures, every single person here can break through of any of that cycle of negativity you're in right now.
Read the Bible.
Have you tried dedicating one day out of the week to the Lord and turning off that stupid smartphone?
Use your phone less.
I think technology is playing a huge role in this.
Don't waste your money on college.
You have a business idea. Go do it.
That's so true.
And most importantly, learn something new every day. Preferably by listening to Charlie Kirk's podcast.
Listen to my podcast, you can listen to Tucker, whatever it is.
America Fest ends not with a policy vision for improving the country, but with this Jordan Peterson-style demand to focus on yourself and stop complaining so much.
We used to tell young people, you're the problem and you have a lot of work to do, and America's wonderful. Now we say to young people, you're wonderful and America's terrible. And this generation is going to turn, get it, the trajectory of the nation towards one that is filled of liberty and virtue and eternal things. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
And that's it.
Congratulations, bitch. We've been through it, and you fucking made it, girl.
I'm not a dictator, you're a fucking... So, what is this? What? In his book, How Fascism Works, philosopher Jason Stanley outlined the 10 pillars of fascist thinking. The 10 themes or ideas that show up over and over again in fascist movements. And, oh boy! They are all here. You've got the really obvious ones, of course. The obsession with law and order, the hatred of academics and intellectuals, this sense of being victimized by minorities and outsiders.
They're after you!
But you've also got some of the less common B-sides here. The intense paranoia around gender and sexual predators. A fear of cities as being overrun by thugs and criminals. And most notably, this distinction between us and them. Real Americans and anti-Americans. At the heart of fascist propaganda is this idea of a perfect enemy. A left that is both scared and weak, but also in control of every aspect of society. A left that wins elections not because of the strength of their ideas, they have no ideas, but because they lie and cheat. A left that is motivated not by good faith policy differences or even by natural explanations like selfishness or stupidity, but by a spirit of destruction. This deep and inexplicable desire to hate their country and destroy what does not belong to them. A liberal might hear this kind of thing and laugh, right? You're never gonna win the popular vote talking like that. But the point of fascist propaganda is not really to win elections. It's to lay the groundwork for rejecting them. After all, if a deranged Bob were trying to wreck your house, as Benny said, you wouldn't ask them to put it up for a vote. You'd defend your house. Grab your gun, like Kevin. Mow them down, like Kyle. Why not kill them? They might be pedophiles. And don't you know that all communists are basically pedophiles? And don't you know that all of them are basically communists?
Let's stop the communist revolution!
In fascist propaganda, the whole idea of elections starts to feel undemocratic. Just another way that the lying, cheating left takes advantage of the silent majority. Which explains why nearly every speaker at AmericaFest voted to overturn the results of the last election, and why at both Q&A sessions at the conference, the first question the crowd asked wasn't how do we win over moderates, or what policy should we enact? It was, when can we start shooting them?
The Second Amendment is designed to basically retaliate against the government whenever they go tyrannical. And my question is, when do we draw that line?
Considering all we hear about Fauci, Biden, and all the treason in the past 11 months, are they going to take applications for the firing squad? Because I'll be number one.
But as scary as that all is, it's not really what surprised me about AmericaFest. In a past life, I used to go undercover to right-wing conferences to keep track of what they were saying. Here's me at CPAC 2012, posing with the head of the country's largest anti-gay group at the time. Yes, she is eating a Nature Valley bar in this picture, and yes, this is me trying to dress like a straight conservative. This "the left hates America" shit has been bubbling up on the right for a long time, and this has always been where it's headed. But what surprised me about AmericaFest was just how empty it all felt.
They didn't prepare me for this!
AmericaFest billed itself as a conference about taking America back, about sticking it to the ruling class and returning power to everyday Americans. But after 4 days of speeches, I still have no idea what that's supposed to look like. For a political action conference, there was almost no talk of political action at all. Barely a mention of economic policy or healthcare policy. No mention of what should be done about the student debt crisis or the medical debt crisis or the housing crisis. Nothing about our country's infrastructure, the fact that the rich are getting richer while bosses steal billions from their workers. Even on COVID, there was lots of complaining about mask and vaccine mandates, but no explanation of what the government should be doing instead, or why America has one of the worst COVID mortality rates for wealthy countries on the planet. Instead of a set of policy ideas, what you got was this Fox News bullshit about Jussie Smollett and Hunter Biden's laptop and only women can become pregnant. Instead of a coherent ideology, what you got was this middle school fantasy about the libs being unfunny and conservatives being sexy heroes. A part of me wants to describe this as identity politics, but identity politics are usually about getting something done. Queer people band together because they want to secure specific legal protections. Racial minorities band together because they want to fix racist policing practices. What happened at AmericaFest was identity instead of politics. All resentment and fake patriotism with no real political project attached to it.
We know there's a deeper game being played, everybody.
Look, if you're Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson, I get it. If all you're trying to do is rile up your audience so they stick around for the next commercial break, it makes sense that you'd argue that politics isn't really about policy. The beauty of this head-empty, just vibes crap is that it never really ends. So you can spend your whole career complaining about woke libs while cashing in checks from whatever meat box company is sponsoring you that month. But at AmericaFest, even the politicians seem to be arguing that politics is nothing more than a big show.
One of Congress's most renowned performers recently criticized the Freedom Caucus for using performance as a tool to rally our legions and retake power. When did we become a movement that dogged on a good performance? Reagan was an actor. I'm on a stage with a whole lot of pyrotechnics. Stagecraft is statecraft. So the operative question is not whether your representatives are performers. We all are. The question is, for whom?
In Right-Wing Culture in Contemporary Capitalism, Matthias Nilgus argues that this type of empty, performative virtue signaling is actually one of the central functions of fascist propaganda, taking people's legitimate feelings of frustration and anger and channeling them towards meaningless, apolitical bullshit. The extreme right has traditionally relied on a semblance of rebelliousnness, billing itself as a political mass movement while ultimately depoliticizing the public sphere. This connected set of tactics obfuscates structural problems and puts pseudo-political slogans, disinformation campaigns,
This is sexual grooming.
and conspiracy narratives
Calling it a Fedsurrection.
in place of political analysis, debates, and programs. I'm sorry guys, I don't know why the left writes like this, just bear with me, okay? The co-optation of revolutionary energy and its displacement to broad forms of anger directed at enemies who are said to threaten mythical notions of racial and national purity is part and parcel of fascism. In other words, fascist propaganda takes the anger that should be directed at the ruling class and launches it flaccidly in the wrong direction, creating the illusion of rebellion without actually challenging the people in power. And if you look for it, you can see this hijacking everywhere at AmericaFest. Speakers would rail against the medical-industrial complex when talking about vaccines, but Republicans fight tooth and nail against any legislation that would actually regulate pharmaceutical companies. Speakers railed against the influence of special interest in politics, but Republicans have squashed every effort to pass campaign finance reform, and nearly every speaker on stage was bankrolled by super PACs or the oil lobby. And maybe the most shameless example came during that first panel on cultural Marxism, after the bizarro rant about queer theory, when one of the panelists said this.
Cultural Marxism is the greatest gift to the super elite left. These are people who have corporations. They want to operate unencumbered by the government or by the people. And they've realized instead of Amazon treating their warehouse workers well or Google treating black people well, all they have to do is post a black square on Instagram, and then all of a sudden they can do whatever horrible stuff they were going to do. They're not actually trying to have equitable distribution of the wealth to the workers in the Amazon warehouse. All they have to do is virtue signal by sending a check to communist Marxist Black Lives Matter, and they announce they're the greatest people on the planet.
It's not a bad argument, right? Corporations do pay lip service to woke causes to make themselves look good while they exploit their own workers. Corporate Democrats do the same shit, making cringy symbolic gestures instead of passing legislation that would improve the lives of working class Americans. This argument is actually the kind of thing you might expect to hear from a leftist or a communist. But in the context of AmericaFest, it's deranged. The right doesn't give a shit about regulating corporations or redistributing the wealth. All Republicans have done for the past 20 years is pass corporate tax cuts and roll back protections for workers and labor unions. AmericaFest started with a quote from Ronald fucking Reagan blasted over an image of MLK and Rosa Parks. Sorry about slipping into my falsetto, everybody. This seemingly paradoxical combination of anti-capitalism with policies aimed at benefiting the ultra-wealthy is a central aspect of the right-wing strategy. These connected strategies serve to protect the economic elite, whose interests are threatened by the anti-capitalist sentiments that current crises generate, but that fascism collapses into a concern with culture and identity, fostering a grotesquely distorted version of a mass movement whose aims are contracted to hatred and violence.
The day may come when our movement calls for the master legislators, the skilled compromisers, but this is not that day. Let's not prove our valor by enduring pain. I'd like to start dishing it out. Less fortitude, more attitude.
In fascist thinking, politics is not about taking care of each other or even about taking care of ourselves. It's about dunking on the enemy. Arrest Fauci, defeat communism, there are only two genders. These phrases have the same function as shit like build the wall and lock her up. Not so much a statement of a political goal as they are a slogan to signal which side you are on. But what happens when dunking on the enemy isn't enough? When it turns out that tormenting trans people and arresting Fauci doesn't make you any less sick or broke or miserable. Instead of political solutions, what fascism offers are purely individual ones. You get COVID because you had to work during a pandemic to pay your rent? Take some Advil or ivermectin. didn't save our co-founder, but maybe it'll save you. You feel powerless in the face of giant corporations that exploit and manipulate you? Give your money to these conservative corporations that will also exploit and manipulate you. You feel desperate in an economy that's rigged against the working class? Invest in gold and silver, or crypto, or any other scam that promises to protect you from the horrors of the free market. And when that doesn't work, when you're still hopeless and anxious, living paycheck to paycheck while billionaires get another round of corporate tax cuts, pray to God. Love your country. Clean your room. Hell, go shoot someone if you have to. Do anything other than question whether the radical leftists they keep warning you about are actually the ones who are screwing you over. This is why fascists and capitalists always end up on the same side. Why the Nazis were supported by big businesses and corporations who bankrolled the party, and why right-wing billionaires give dipshits like Charlie Kirk millions of dollars to put on events like AmericaFest. Not because the ultra-rich really care about the Jewish question or the gender question, but because ultimately, fascists and capitalists want the same thing. A public that thinks of politics as nothing more than the fucking Hunger Games. A spectacle of cruelty and revenge where you can cheer for your team and take joy in the suffering of your enemy, but that never truly threatens the people in power. As Henry Giroux wrote in 2019, operating under the false assumption that there are only individual solutions to socially produced problems, neoliberal fascism renders human beings numb and fearful, immune to the demands of economic and social justice, and increasingly divorced from matters of politics, ethics, and social responsibility, all the while becoming increasingly susceptible to political shocks and the seductive pleasures of the manufactured spectacle. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. What has Carlos been eating? Ass, okay? Can you focus for 5 minutes? You might also be thinking, well, what are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna do about it? Every time I talk about this stuff, half the comments are like, nice video, dick tit, but what are we gonna do about it? I don't know. Jananda?
Jananda?
Fascism is a virus that destroyed entire countries of fully educated adults before I was even a glint in my father's nutsack. Sorry, parents' nutsack. Forgot Pelosi banned gender. I am not sexy or cool enough to think that anything I say is gonna stop someone from falling down the right-wing rabbit hole, okay? But I will say this. I don't think head-empty fascism is the kind of thing you can beat with facts and logic. You can't beat it by appealing to shit like compromise or civility. To be honest, I don't even think you can beat it by just passing popular policies. As ridiculous as it was, the stuff you saw at AmericaFest is basically indistinguishable from what happens on Fox News every night. And Fox has been the #1 cable news network in America every year for the past 20 years. Because for all that fascists get wrong, and they get nearly everything wrong, what they get right is their understanding that when people are angry, vibes matter a lot more than good governance. The reason that young people turn to fascism instead of Marxism is that while Marxism presents them, fascism represents them. The appeal of the focus on identity lies in the sense of personal validation and recognition that it offers. And fascism understands that the desire for representation is a powerful tool for the depoliticization of the working class, hosting folk and fatherland as a substitute for their own sinking caste. God, somebody tattoo that quote on my fat. Fascism may not offer solutions to people's problems, but what it does offer is a simple us versus them story. Easy targets for people to direct their anger at. And as much as I wish that you could just debate people out of that, calmly explain that trans people are not the source of their suffering, and that none of this reactionary bullshit has ever helped anyone except the rich assholes who sell it, it's just not realistic. Humans are still deeply emotional, ego-driven creatures. And if you don't give them somewhere to put their anger, they're gonna end up aiming it at whatever marginalized group fascists tell them to blame first. What we need is a better story. A better them for us to rage against. A political project that takes people's legitimate feelings of resentment and frustration and channels them not towards head-empty nonsense, but towards real revolution. Reforms that will actually challenge the ruling class and improve the material, nay, physical conditions of people's lives. I'm talking about class war, Jananda. Eating the rich, abolishing billionaires, rolling out some guillotines. Metaphorically. Okay, no, Alexa, stop. Not that song. We need a new song. I'm talking about good old-fashioned economic antagonism, baby. I know, the sweet little liberal in my head is horrified at the thought of it. Wishes we could just talk through our differences over bipartisan beers in the Rose Garden, like in the good old days.
I just wish we could all get along like we used to in middle school. I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles and we'd all eat it, be happy.
But those days are over now. We are a country on the verge of real democratic collapse, with a government that seems incapable of doing the bare minimum to take care of its people. Rage is the correct response to the way things have been going lately. The only question now is which side gets to claim and wield it. And it should not be the side of mega corporations and oil barons cosplaying as revolutionaries. People want a vibe? Give them a vibe. People want a spectacle? Give them a spectacle. I guess what I really want for the left is a little less conversation and a little more goddamn.
This is nuts.
You can share memes. Some people might, they don't really like them.
Let's go, lesbians!
A wave of worker strikes sweeping across America. Thousands across different industries have already walked out.
Demanding better pay, better working conditions.
The bosses will keep getting richer and we'll keep getting poorer unless we get together.
After years of frustration, it feels like a dam is bursting.
Workers are standing up everywhere.
Another sign of the rising spirit of activism and solidarity in the American labor movement.
What we're going through, ladies and gentlemen, is a communist revolution. 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 Communist policy.
I got you next to me.